Hi, it's Sandra here from Creating Spain. I apologise if the sound isn't quite the usual standard, in that I've got my camera facing me and maybe the mic isn't quite as strong as it could be. Anyway, I thought I'd try and show you how to construct an elevated pop-up card. Now, I've made the video on how it's actually drawn in Shortcuts a lot. And so you can have a look at that to see what the pieces are supposed to look like. But this was just a little video to give you a better idea of how to put it together, and it makes it just that little bit easier than you might otherwise find it. Okay, so we have our pieces. This one is the actual stage, and you can't see it on the camera, but I've got my score lines and things already in there. This is the back and the front. It's just two rectangles. I have a strip that I've cut so that I can show you how to attach the pop-up elements, and I have a couple of pop-up elements just cut out of the card at the same time. Now, as I discussed on the video that I did on Shortcuts a lot, I have all my score lines done, and I have a couple of little pop-up tabs actually cut in here already, but I've only cut the two tabs, and the reason for this is I wanted to show you how to manage to do this if you have absolutely no idea to start with what elements you're going to use and where you want to put them, because sometimes we design after we've started the main frame of the card. Okay, so I'm just going to show you where the fold lines are. The very middle is folded like so. Actually, that should have been folded a little better. There we go. So that was the first one. And then the other one that you need to concern yourself with is the one just before this tab. So that has to be what you call, in origami you call that a mountain fold, okay, and that one's a valley fold. And the folds that are in the middle of that, it doesn't make too much difference, to be quite honest, how they're folded at the moment. Alright, when the card is constructed, it will go together like so, and the bit on the back, this bit here will have adhesive on the inside, and then you trim off this little edge here so that you have feet that stick out either side, but I'll show you that in a few minutes. Now, if you have no idea whatsoever what elements you're going to use, I suggest you make a paper plan. And this is one for a card I did recently. And what you need to do, if you're going to do this, is to put one of your backs or your front, whichever, and line it up. And to make life even easier, normally you'd think, well, that's going to be the centre back of the card, and this is the centre front of the card, and you line A along with B, and that would be it, wouldn't it? But because this is actually going to be folded again, and the ends have got folds that go like so, and these form a platform, when the card is closed, the platform slides forward by that amount, and in this case I think it's like a centimetre. I think I've got them at. So it's an equal amount to the gap between the two folds in the centre. So if you line up that with that and just slide it over like so, you'll know where you can put your elements. If, for example, I wanted to put my element here, I could have a slit here for it, but it would just be on line with that very edge of the card. I don't know if you can see this on frame at the moment, so I'll slide it back a bit. It would be on frame, on the edge of the frame of the card. If I were to put it like so, you would see it when the card was shut, which obviously is not the intention. So you want to make sure that whatever elements you've got, you place the slits accordingly, which is why you may not want to do it until you actually have your card pieces cut out and all your elements cut out. And of course, if you've done that, it's too late to put the element slits in. So that will be something that you need to be wary of. Now, the other thing you need to be wary of is which things cross over. If, for example, I have, I don't know, perhaps I put my umbrella here. So it's going to stand up. I'll turn it around the right way for you. It's going to stand up, say it's going to stand up there. And maybe I've decided I want my heart quite a long way back, so I'm going to put a slit there. If I put a slit there, it probably overlaps, I can't see too clearly from this angle, but it probably overlaps the umbrella a little bit. Now maybe that's okay, depending on your design, maybe it isn't, but it's something you need to be aware of. You also need to be aware, of course, that you don't put your elements too far over to the side and that they're overlapping the side of the card. So that's placement of the actual bits and pieces in your card. Now, how do you make the slits? If you haven't already done it, how do you make the slits? Well, the simple way of doing it is to make yourself a paper guide. Decide where you want them. So I would have done this with my paper in place. It's just a duplicate. Put my paper in place, marked my lines on my paper. Then what you can do is you can take your paper, put it over your card, and just use a pin or something to go stab through the paper into the card at the points that you want to cut. Now, to cut them, obviously you just put it on your cutting surface. Take a metal ruler if you have one. It's always preferable to use a metal one, and just cut between the marks you've made. Now, on the off chance, and there is an off chance that you might actually conceivably forget to cut a mark that you want, or perhaps you add another element and you haven't got a cut mark for it, you think, what am I going to do? When the card is fully made up, just slide a piece of craft foam, the thicker variety of craft foam, underneath your card, like so, and make your mark and your slit then, and you can cut into the foam and it'll be fine, it'll help support it. Okay, so that's how you do that bit. So how do you actually construct the card itself? Just mislaid my back and my front. Okay, so the first thing is to make sure all your fold lines are done. I've done those at that end, but I haven't done the ones at this end. So here we go, fold them along the score lines. So now that I've done that, I need to stick this bit together just under that line there, not the bit that's in the very, very middle. I need to stick this bit to this bit. Okay, so now normally I would actually have my pieces of tape cut if I had any sense, but I didn't, so there we go. Trim off any bits that go outside the card edge, because you really don't want any of those showing. In fact, I'm going to pull that back a little bit and just trim that off. Okay, so take off the lining. This bit is always the bit that I hate trying to do, especially when I can't put it directly up to my nose and see what I'm doing. Come on. There we go. So that bit goes up to that bit, and we have our actual base area. Now we need to trim off this tiny little piece here. Luckily I have a paper trimmer within reach, because it's always easier to do it with a paper trimmer, I've had. And just, now I apologise if this is off camera, but it's not overly exciting anyway, you're not missing much. There we go. I've just trimmed off that edge of the card because this opens out and becomes a support foot. Get my tongue out of the knot. Like so. So that's what you end up with, a support. So what I would normally be thinking is that I would need to put my support onto my my back and my front. However, that is not a very good idea because it makes putting your elements on extremely difficult. What I suggest you do is you take your back and your front, you line up where they're actually going to go. In fact, you can fold it over if you want to. So those are going to be in exactly the right place. And again, I suggest you get a pin, you prick through, like so, like so, like so, for whatever it is that you want to do. And then cut those things out. Now I'm going to do just one so you can see how it works. Okay, I'll do this one here. So here and here. So I have my pin marks just there. And if I can find my craft knife, that would be handy. Where have I put the craft knife? There we go. And a metal rule. Okay, sorry for all the clattering. I'm not very organised this morning. So, what am I doing? I don't want to put it in there. I'm an idiot. What do I want to put it in there for? I don't want to put a slit in there. Silly, 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 silly person. Good job, I didn't have my craft knife ready to go. Idiot that I am, sorry. This is for marking with a pencil, not for cutting, okay? Just pretend that bit didn't happen. Pretend I edited it out, which I didn't, because I can't be bothered to spend an hour editing. I'm making this with a dark pencil, which I wouldn't normally do, but at least you can see it. So the next thing that you actually want to do is to create your stand for your pop-up. And you can do this very, very easily by doubling over a thin strip of card. It doesn't have to be neat, but what the heck, just chop that off. And when you actually do this, when the card is folded, your pieces will fold towards the outer edge of the card. So it's quite a good idea. If, for example, this is going to be side 1, okay, and I will also label this side 1 because we all know that when you put it together, otherwise it's going to end up in the wrong place, don't we? We know that. Now, assuming that I have a slit already cut, I can then glue this to my base. Just take a small amount of glue. And I've got some in here, but it's got a very fine nozzle, so it's just taking a while to come through. There we go. Big mistake people make is using too much glue. You only need a little drop. Otherwise you just end up with it sliding around all over the place. Okay, so there is one of my pop-ups. Now you notice that I folded this down. I didn't glue it down. There's a very good reason. You'll see later. Now, assuming that this is my matching one, I haven't cut any holes in this, so I need to cut the corresponding hole in this slit. I said I've not put any slits in here at all because I will probably use this card at some point, but I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it, okay? So line it up with that edge there, which is going to be the middle of the card, with the middle of the stage or platform, whatever you like to call it, and then pin mark through there. And now I need my knife. Okay. And I can just about, I think I can just about see the pin marks without putting my head in shot. So if this is slightly off, that will be why, because I can't always see too clearly to get it in the right place. Yeah, I got my hole. Now, if you were doing this for an actual card, you would make sure that the size of the hole corresponds to the size of your piece there. Right, and now we need to think about joining one piece to the other, assuming that we have all our various bits stuck on here, which I don't, obviously, but assuming that I did. Now, this would be the front of the card towards me, and this piece here is the corresponding piece, so it needs to go like so. And the way it goes is it actually adheres to this piece here, and it is much easier to do it this way round than it is to put the card upright and try and attach the stage in that way. Okay, so I'm just going to put a thin line of double-sided tape here because it's a little quicker and I don't have to wait for it to dry. And actually, it may not be quicker by the time I get the backing off, knowing me and my backing. We shall see. Is it going to come off easily? Ah! There we go. And so making sure that you have them in the same direction. So that was the front, the very front edge, and the very front edge there. So you do need to make sure they're around the right way. And place that to that line there. Okay, and you will do the same thing for the other side of the card by folding it over, folding that edge down, and when you've got all your pieces on the back of it, again that one goes on. So I'm just going to show you the one side for the moment. Now, the beauty of doing it this way is that you have a relatively long tab that you can put up through the hole, ta-da, like that. Now, when it comes to actually putting this side of the card down, you can keep that through there. You need tape on this side, so I'm just going to roughly measure some tape. So you have your tape on the end here. I've cut it a bit short, but this is demonstration, I'm not going to worry about it. Then what you do is you fold over at the next ridge, not that one. You fold it over at that ridge. You make sure your card is completely and utterly flat and you stick it down. So I'm going to take this tape off here. Actually, I'll put just this edge of tape on the end, since I may well use this card afterwards. I'll put an extra bit of tape on. And try and get the backing off. Not too bad. I'll go for it for this end, I think, since I've overlapped it on the other end. There we go. I can do that. So fold it back at the one nearest the centre. Make sure that your centrepiece is flat and then press down. So we now have our platform in place. We also have our stand in place, and if you can see that, it is where it needs to be, because if you try putting this stand in afterwards, the chances are it won't be where it needs to be there. It'll either be forward or back, and that will affect the way that your little embellishments stand up. So what you do then is you decide how tall you want your stand to be, and assuming that I've got something relatively tall, I'll keep it at that length. And all you do is you tuck it into that hole. Now, I could possibly have made my hole a little wider, but you don't want to make it too wide because you still want it to be a reasonably tight fit. And I probably didn't make this one quite wide enough because I only gave it one cut with the craft knife. But you get the idea. that will go through there. There we go. I had to squeeze it down in. That will go down there. Get it so that it is about the same depth down. So yeah, like so. And then you can just squeeze that together. So you could do it a little more neatly than I've done it, but I find it difficult to work at a distance. I tend to put things right up to my nose practically. So there we have the stand, and for example we could have a heart on it. So I don't want to glue that on thinking about it because I might use the card. So when it is shut, that then folds forward like so. Okay, that's how it works, and then when you open it up, it pops up. So you do the same thing on the opposite side, and then you've got the two. Now these tabs in the center are for putting matching items on, so that it's one item, it folds flat, but it can be viewed from either side, and it will form a more three-dimensional shape. It's quite handy if, for example, you have a large item, because you put one piece on the back, one piece on the front, and then you glue it together at a point higher up so that it has far more support. Okay, so that's quite handy for a big item in the center. Bear in mind, if you do a big item in the center, you're not going to see what's behind, but that depends whether you want it to be a card that can be turned round back and front, or whether it can't. So that's how it's done. And doing it that way does make it an awful lot easier. I've tried it the other way by sticking things through here afterwards, and it is really hard to get those bases in the right place and stuck down, especially if they're in the centre of the card. And this is only a relatively small card. If you're doing a much bigger one, trying to get to the centre and stick the foot down would be really nigh on impossible. So that is the way that I've chosen to do it. I hope you found that useful, and that you have a go. And as you can see, that's where the back of the card needs to go on there, and then you would have both your back and your front stuck on, and your elements in the middle that will pop up. Okay, that's it. Sorry it's such a long video, and I hope you can hear me. Thanks very much for watching.